The stars shimmered across the void like scattered diamonds, but to Commander Vale of the Drokther Dominion, they were little more than markers on a hunting ground. He lounged in the command throne, claws drumming lazily against the armrest, his 4 eyes half-lidded with boredom. Another day, another raid. The frontier was littered with soft worlds, and humanity, newcomers to the galactic stage, were proving to be a particularly convenient source of plunder. Another cluster of their settlements, Commander, rasped his adjutant, a wiry creature whose voice carried both reverence and unease. Barely defended, if at all. We'll be in and out before they know what struck them. Vale exhaled through sharp teeth, a hiss of disinterest. Does it matter? These humans are beneath us. Every time we descend, they squeal, they resist for a moment, and then they crumble. They call themselves resilient, yet every raid proves otherwise. He smirked, the ridge of his jaw tilting in amusement. Perhaps I should thank them for being so consistent in their failure. Laughter rippled across the bridge. Officers relaxed into the familiar rhythm of superiority. Humanity was not a threat. Humanity was a pastime. The raid commenced with a kind of perfunctory grace. Drokther vessels slid from the shadows, sleek and predatory, and the colony's orbital alarms wailed seconds too late. Surface settlements scattered in panic as gunships shrieked downward. Vale barely bothered to watch. His mind wandered to more pressing frustrations, the long supply lines, the tedious reports he'd have to deliver, the irritating debates among the High Council about whether these humans should be taxed instead of harvested. "Commander, resistance forming on the eastern ridge," reported a sensor officer. "Crush it," Vale replied without a flicker of emotion. On the colony below, desperate men and women scrambled to set up field cannons and launch outdated drones. They fought with grit, but grit meant little against the precision firepower of a Dominion assault wing. Firestorms lit the horizon, and Vale's bridge was briefly illuminated by the flare of annihilation. He yawned. "They persist," he muttered. "Like vermin gnawing even after the trap has snapped shut." His adjutant risked a comment. "It is said they do not yield easily, Commander. Some admire that about them." Admire. Vale's eyes narrowed, a predator's gleam in his gaze. You mistake stubbornness for strength. They fight because they have nothing else. That is not valor, it is desperation. And desperation always breaks. The colony fell in less than 2 standard hours. Smoke billowed through the atmosphere, signal beacons cracked and silenced. On the bridge, trophies were catalogued, slaves sorted, resources logged. To Vale, it was as routine as scratching an itch. "Plot course to the next target," he ordered. The navigation officer hesitated. "There is a cluster near the galactic edge, Commander. Denser infrastructure. Larger shipments of resources. Possibly even a central node for their communications. It would be profitable." Vale's interest stirred for the first time in days. A larger settlement meant greater spoils, and perhaps a promotion. He leaned forward, lips curling into a cruel smile. "At last, something worthy of my attention. Very well. Set the course. Humanity's little heart will beat slower by the time we are done." The fleet carved through the darkness, engines humming with hunger. Officers speculated, betting on how quickly the settlement would collapse. Some joked about how humans still fought with projectiles and chemicals, weapons primitive compared to Dominion plasma. Others laughed at the idea of humans developing real strategy. Vale encouraged their mockery. Contempt was a convenient shield against boredom. The target came into view after several jumps, a blue-green world, its oceans glittering like molten sapphire. Orbital satellites dotted its skies, but none bore the marks of advanced military installation. To the Drokther, it looked vulnerable. "Is this it?" Vale asked with a faint trace of disappointment. "This is the hub we were promised. It looks ordinary." "Perhaps their desperation makes them seem larger than they are," an officer said, earning chuckles from the crew. Vale gave the order to advance. Weapons charged, dropships prepared, the fleet swelling with predatory eagerness. He addressed his officers with a sly grin. "Remember this moment. When the humans look up and see our shadows fall upon their sky, they will know their end is inevitable." The fleet surged forward. Defensive satellites flickered to life, unleashing a modest volley, but Vale dismissed it with a gesture. "Sweep them aside." Plasma fire shredded the defenses. Dropships pierced the atmosphere, leaving contrails of fire behind. The operation unfolded with mechanical precision, just as every other raid had. Yet something felt different. As the first wave of ships descended, communications static crackled across the bridge. Officers frowned, adjusting controls, attempting to clear the interference. One muttered about human jammers. Though such a claim was laughable, humans had never demonstrated technology capable of disrupting Dominion channels. Then the sensors began reporting anomalies. Power signatures hidden deep within the planet's crust. Thermal blooms inconsistent with civilian settlements. Orbital readings that suddenly revealed structures far larger than satellites, massive platforms, their emissions masked until now. Vale leaned forward, the first prickle of unease running down his spine. Report. Commander, there are distortions in the outer orbit. They appear to be artificial. The adjutant's voice shook as he translated the data. Sir, those are fleets. Human fleets. Cloaked. A silence gripped the bridge. Officers stared at the displays, where phantom signatures resolved into undeniable shapes, vast warships, their hulls bristling with weapons that should not have existed in human arsenals. Before anyone could recover, a voice cut across every channel, calm, measured, human. It did not boast. It did not threaten. It merely stated, "You should not have come here." The words carried no fury, no desperation, only a chilling certainty. The fleet's laughter died. Vale felt his claws tighten around the armrest. His arrogance faltered as realization pierced the haze of superiority. This was no mere colony. This was not another helpless outpost waiting to be broken. They had found Earth. And Earth was waiting. The stars outside the viewport seemed colder now, the void less empty. Vale felt the weight of something vast and unseen pressing against his mind, a presence patient, calculating, dangerous. Humanity was not prey. Humanity had been watching, preparing, and now, with quiet inevitability, they had turned the hunters into the hunted. Vale's final thought before the first human strike tore into his fleet was not of victory, nor of plunder, but of a gnawing, unfamiliar sensation. For the first time in his career, Commander Vale felt fear. The first salvo struck with surgical precision, lancing through the void like a blade drawn across silk. Drokther cruisers erupted in silence, hulls crumpling as human railguns tore through armor that was supposed to be impenetrable. The Dominion bridge, once filled with smug laughter, descended into chaos. Officers scrambled, voices colliding in panic as they shouted contradictory reports. Vale rose from his command throne, claws flexing against the polished surface of the armrest, his earlier languor gone, replaced by a tension that gnawed at the edges of his certainty. The human voice returned over the comms, steady and deliberate, as if reciting a script rehearsed for years. We warned you. You mistook silence for weakness. You mistook patience for fear. That ends now. The words were not shouted, nor laced with rage. They arrived like a surgeon's scalpel, clean, calm, inevitable. Vale felt the bridge grow colder, his crew reduced to silhouettes caught in the glow of failing systems. For the first time, the humans were speaking not as victims, but as arbiters. One of his lieutenants turned toward him, eyes wide. They cannot have this kind of power. It is impossible. Then why, Vale growled, do I see my ships burning? The second wave came swiftly. Human warships emerged from the shadows like predators breaking cover. They did not charge recklessly but maneuvered with eerie coordination, each movement purposeful, each strike calculated. Dominion vessels responded with frantic volleys, yet every plasma burst seemed to strike empty space. The humans anticipated every counterattack, as if they had studied the Dominion's tactics for centuries. Vale's adjutant leaned close, whispering as though afraid the humans might overhear. Commander, they knew we were coming. The suggestion felt absurd, but the evidence mounted with every passing second. The supposed colony had been bait. The hidden fleets, the cloaked stations, the sudden communications, none of this was coincidence. Humanity had not stumbled into survival. They had orchestrated it. On the surface, Earth revealed its teeth. Launch silos that had lain dormant for decades cracked open, unleashing waves of missiles whose trajectories bent with guidance from orbital satellites. Ground-based rail cannons lit the sky with streaks of fire, tearing apart dropships before they cleared the atmosphere. What Vale had thought to be a pastoral, unremarkable world had transformed into a fortress older and more cunning than he could comprehend. Still, he refused to bend. Order the fleet to regroup. Concentrate fire on their largest vessels. Overwhelm them before they. He was cut off as the central view screen magnified, unbidden, to reveal a human flagship drifting into full view. Its design was alien yet terrifyingly efficient. Broad, angular lines built not for elegance, but for war. Its presence silenced the bridge more thoroughly than any order Vale could have given. The comms flickered, and a human officer appeared, clad in dark uniform, face impassive. "I am Admiral Reyes of the Terran Defense Command. This incursion ends here." Vale bared his teeth. "You dare speak as though you hold dominion over us. Do you realize who we are? The Drokther have ruled empires before your kind learned to shape fire." Reyes did not flinch. His voice carried no arrogance, no need for threat. "Yes, we know who you are. We also know how you rule. That is why we prepared." He gestured slightly, and as if on cue, Dominion displays lit up with intercepted data, schematics of Drokther ships, supply routes, even the hidden codes of their command network. Every secret laid bare, as though the humans had been peeling away their armor piece by piece for decades. Vale's stomach twisted. "Impossible," he hissed. Reyes's gaze was steady, almost pitying. "Your empire thought we were children playing at civilization. You raided our colonies, slaughtered our people, and assumed we were too fractured to respond. But every attack taught us something. Every loss was a lesson. You thought you were predators. You were tutors." A murmur of disbelief rippled through Vale's crew. The Dominion had prided itself on invulnerability, on the weakness of others. To see their power turned into an education for their prey was a humiliation deeper than any defeat. The battle outside grew worse by the minute. Human ships did not pursue glory or spectacle. They dismantled Dominion formations piece by piece, choosing their targets with unnerving restraint. Smaller ships were spared if they fled, larger ones crippled rather than destroyed. It was not mercy, it was control. The humans were demonstrating that survival itself now belonged to their discretion. Vale realized the central conflict was no longer survival, but perception. For centuries, the Dominion defined itself as master and conqueror. In a single engagement, humanity had inverted that dynamic. The question was no longer whether the Drokther could crush humanity. The question was whether they could survive humanity's decision to finally stop pretending. "Commander," the adjutant whispered, trembling, "we must retreat. If we stay, they will erase us all." Retreat was unthinkable, yet every instinct screamed it was the only option left. Vale opened his mouth to issue the order, but Reyes spoke again, as if anticipating him. "You may leave, Commander Vale. Carry our message back to your empire. This was not chance. This was design. If you return in force, we will not fight you for survival. We will fight you to end you. Choose carefully." The transmission cut, leaving only the flickering image of Earth's defenses, calm and impenetrable. Vale's claws trembled against the armrest. The humans had stripped him of his authority without firing a final shot. They had spoken with the confidence of those who already owned the outcome. It was not conquest, not yet, but it was the unmistakable prelude. For the first time, he felt the weight of history shift, the inevitability of a tide rising against the Dominion. And beneath his fear, buried deep, was the sharp edge of admiration, an unwilling acknowledgement that humanity had achieved in silence what the Dominion could never do through arrogance. He gave the order. "Withdraw." The fleet limped into retreat, broken but not annihilated, carrying with it the echo of a revelation that would shatter the galaxy. Vale remained standing, eyes fixed on the shrinking image of Earth. He knew the Council would mock him, accuse him of cowardice, dismiss his warnings. But he had seen the truth. Humanity had been waiting. And now that they had revealed themselves, the galaxy would never sleep soundly again. The council chamber of the Drokther Dominion glittered with crystalline light, but to Vale it felt suffocating, a cavern of polished arrogance. He stood before the gathered lords and war chiefs, their jeweled crests catching the glow of suspended orbs, their expressions ranging from disdain to amusement. His report had barely concluded before the murmurs began. "You claim the humans destroyed your fleet," one sneered, voice dripping with incredulity. "That they, these half-feral mammals, possess technology equal to ours." Vale's jaw tightened. "Not equal. Superior. They masked entire fleets from our sensors, revealed weapons beyond anything we've encountered, and dismantled us without effort. I tell you plainly, if we persist, the Dominion will not prevail." Laughter broke across the chamber, cruel and echoing. A matriarch of the High Council leaned forward, eyes narrowing with false curiosity. Perhaps the mighty Commander Vale seeks to excuse his own incompetence by praising the enemy? How convenient to blame failure on myth. Vale wanted to roar, to tear away the veil of their smugness with raw truth, but he restrained himself. The memory of Admiral Reyes's calm voice lingered in his mind, heavy as a stone in his chest. "You think me weak," he said evenly, "but weakness is ignoring what stands before you. Humanity has not revealed its strength until now. They are not prey. They are predators who learn to wait." Silence followed, broken by a younger lord who spoke with a hiss of irritation. "Even if they are stronger than expected, they are few. Their colonies scatter like sparks, their numbers pitiful compared to our dominion. Let us strike in force and extinguish them before they spread further." Vale fixed his gaze on the younger lord, unblinking. "That is precisely the error they want you to make. Every colony you attacked was bait. They studied us with each raid, shaped their weapons for our weaknesses. To march now is to step into a snare they have already woven." The chamber erupted in argument. Some voices carried tones of alarm, others mocked the notion of fear. Vale stood amid the storm, feeling more isolated with each passing moment. The Dominion had thrived on conquest so long that the very concept of restraint was alien to them. They could not fathom an enemy who fought with patience instead of pride. Later, alone in his quarters, Vale replayed fragments of intercepted human transmissions. Not battle reports or intercepted commands, those the humans had shielded too well, but archival fragments, drawn from human networks the Dominion had plundered during raids. Wars fought across their own world, trenches choking with gas, cities swallowed by fire, mushroom clouds blooming like deathly flowers. He watched, transfixed and unsettled. Humanity's violence was not alien to him. Conquest was the Dominion's lifeblood. But there was something different in these images. Humans fought themselves with a ferocity unmatched, then rebuilt, then fought again, each war forging resilience instead of collapse. It was as if suffering was not an affliction to them, but an inheritance, carried forward, perfected. A whisper escaped him, unbidden. They survived because they have always survived, even when it meant burning their own world. The thought gnawed at him. What empire, what species could face such an enemy and not eventually break? His adjutant entered quietly, bowing low. "Commander, the council prepares to deliberate further. Some press for immediate war, others whisper of negotiation. They await your counsel." Vale turned away from the flickering screens. "Negotiation will fail. War will end us. Yet they will not hear me. They mock until the blade is at their throat. Then what hope remains?" Vale's claws flexed. "Hope lies in truth. When the humans strike next, no one will be able to deny it. Perhaps then they will listen, though it may already be too late." He strode into the chamber again, this time to witness the council's decision. The younger lord had gained momentum, rallying others with promises of swift conquest. "We are the Dominion," he thundered. "We bow to no one, least of all an upstart species clinging to the edge of the galaxy. Assemble the grand fleets. Crush them utterly, and this talk of fear will die." The chamber roared in approval, pride drowning reason. Vale's warning fell into the noise, his voice unheard. He stood rigid as the decision was sealed. The Dominion would march to war against humanity in full strength. But beneath their exultation, he saw uncertainty flicker in their eyes. Fear lingered, though buried beneath layers of bravado. They did not believe him entirely, yet they did not dismiss him wholly either. It was the hesitation of those who had glimpsed the shadow of truth, but dared not admit it. When the chamber emptied, Vale remained behind, staring at the vacant thrones. The galaxy trembled on the edge of revelation, and the Dominion had chosen arrogance over wisdom. That night, he dreamed of fire raining across stars, of human fleets emerging from the void like silent wraiths. In the dream, his empire shattered not from defeat alone, but from realization, the understanding that they had never been the hunters at all. He woke with his chest tight, claws curled into the bedding. There would be no turning back now. The course was set, and humanity had been waiting for exactly this moment. Across the stars, preparations stirred. Wormhole gates warmed in silence, drones awakened from dormancy, and fleets held their positions in disciplined stillness. The humans did not rush to war. They were patient, letting the Dominion gather its arrogance like dry tinder. Vale knew the match was already in their hands, and when it was struck, the galaxy would burn. The grand armada of the Drokther stretched across the void, 1,000 warships forged from centuries of conquest, their hulls scarred yet proud. Banners of Dominion authority flared in coded lights across the formation, a display of confidence meant to intimidate any who might watch. To Commander Vale, standing at the prow of his flagship, it was not intimidation he saw, but denial, a futile attempt to mask the rot of fear spreading through his people. He had warned them, and they had not listened. Now they had wagered their empire against a species they did not understand. The silence before battle was unnerving. The human fleets did not rush forward. They lingered beyond sensor range, shadows against the endless dark, patient as a predator crouched in tall grass. Every moment stretched thin, the Dominion officers muttering, scanning, second-guessing their own instruments. Even the council-appointed marshal, swollen with pride and draped in ceremonial armor, began to fidget. Then the first ripple struck. Wormholes blossomed like blooming scars in the void, distorting light, bending reality. From them poured human ships, not in disarray, but in deliberate waves, each one slipping into formation, as though rehearsed. Frigates spread like a net, cruisers advanced with machine precision, and carriers unleashed swarms of drones that moved as if guided by one mind. It was not chaos. It was choreography. The Dominion reacted with fire. Plasma lances carved across the battlefield, shredding drone clusters and raking against human hulls. Explosions flared, and for a heartbeat, it seemed as though raw firepower might still prevail. But the humans adapted instantly. Their formations shifted, their drones reconfigured, their warships vanished into wormholes only to reappear behind Dominion lines. No strategy held against them for longer than a breath. Every countermeasure was met with a sharper answer, every strike turned into a lesson. On the bridge of his flagship, Vale watched as the battle unfolded into inevitability. His officers screamed commands, demanded retaliation, cursed the cowardice of ships breaking formation, but he stood in grim silence. He had seen this before. Not this exact moment, but the shape of it, the calm inevitability with which humanity dismantled arrogance. The council marshal bellowed into comms, voice trembling despite his bravado. Press forward. Overwhelm them with numbers. Vale turned slowly, his gaze like steel. Numbers mean nothing when the enemy turns your strength into your weakness. You are feeding them the empire piece by piece. The marshal sneered. Coward's tongue. You disgrace your name. Vale did not answer. Instead, his eyes returned to the viewport, where Dominion cruisers buckled under precise railgun fire, where entire wings vanished as wormhole lances tore through them, where human fleets advanced without flourish, without boasting, only with the certainty of those who already owned tomorrow. Across comms, a voice returned, steady and calm. Admiral Reyes again, though his features were hidden this time behind a darkened visor. Drock Dominion. You chose war. We will end it. The Dominion fleet broke within hours. Not shattered in a blaze of final defiance, but unraveling in panic, surrendering in clusters, abandoning their marshal's orders as reality crushed illusion. Some ships powered down weapons unbidden, broadcasting distress signals that doubled as pleas for mercy. The humans did not annihilate them. They disabled engines, stripped weapons, and left them adrift, alive but powerless. Mercy offered not out of compassion, but to make the hierarchy undeniable. Vale's flagship was spared longer than most. Human ships encircled it, weapons locked, but no final strike delivered. A message cut through the static, addressed only to him. Commander Vale, you warned them. They did not listen. Now you must. He felt the eyes of his crew upon him, some burning with terror, others with despair. His claws dug into the armrest, not out of defiance, but because the weight of the moment was crushing him. Slowly, he stood and gave the order no Drock the commander had ever dared to speak. Stand down. Power down all weapons. Gasps filled the bridge, followed by silence. The flagship dimmed, its systems folding into submission. Outside, human ships adjusted position, their encirclement loosening slightly, not as acknowledgement of equals, but as confirmation that control was absolute. When the comms reconnected, Admiral Reyes's face appeared again, calm as ever. The Dominion's era is over. Humanity does not seek vengeance, only order. You will carry this message to your leaders. The galaxy will either adapt to the new order, or it will collapse fighting it. We will not pretend to be weak again. Vale studied the man on the screen. There was no malice in his eyes, no hatred. Only the cold resolve of one who had seen too much death and refused to let it define him again. It was this, Vale realized, that made humanity so terrifying. They were not conquerors drunk on glory, they were survivors who had learned to master survival itself. The Dominion Marshal raged in the background, shrieking orders no one obeyed. Vale ignored him. He bowed his head slightly, an acknowledgement not of surrender, but of recognition. I will carry your words. Whether my people hear them is another matter. Reyes inclined his head, almost respectful. Then let them see what you have seen. The transmission ended. The human fleets did not pursue further destruction. They held their formation, vast and unyielding, shepherding Dominion survivors toward designated routes of retreat. It was control executed with chilling efficiency, no chaos, no triumph, only inevitability. Vale stood in silence as his crew processed what had transpired. For the first time, he felt the weight of something greater than empire or conquest pressing on him. The humans had not merely defeated the Dominion. They had redefined the rules of the galaxy. When he finally spoke, his voice carried both exhaustion and clarity. We thought ourselves lords of the stars, but we have only been guests in a galaxy that now belongs to them. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. His crew lowered their eyes, none daring to challenge the truth. Outside, the human fleets drifted like silent sentinels, their presence both promise and warning. The galaxy would never again laugh at humanity, nor mistake their patience for weakness. And as Vale turned from the viewport, he realized that his fear had transformed into something stranger, sharper, respect. Humanity had not sought this war, but now that it had been forced upon them, they would shape the stars with the same relentlessness that had carried them through fire and ruin on their own world. The climax was not the destruction of fleets, nor the collapse of an empire, but the quiet certainty that tomorrow belonged to humanity. And the galaxy, in its trembling silence, wept.